And welcome here to day 5 of our regional finals here at Super Regionals. We got Finch here, we got Taco, and we got Tolly. And Tolly, you're looking pretty good today.
You know, I'm looking good, feeling good, woke up good, an hour back in time here, ready for some Super Regionals North American action.
Do you want to trade?
No, I don't.
Are you sure?
Thank you for the offer.
Yeah, it looks good. I like the chain.
I'm going to have to generously decline.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Generously declining here is Tolly, but again, thank you all for joining us so much, and we want to thank you all so much that we actually do have a really great discount going on here with Sennheiser. All you need is promo code hi-rez. That'll get you 10% off a Sennheiser headset and even a chance to get that free headset hanger as well. There, Taco.
And of course, you always got to appreciate some good audio. I know the players do whenever they're on stage, and of course we always do whenever we're having these broadcasts.
That's right, and if you all were not able to get those HRX tickets, I mean, they are unfortunately sold out here at this point. We still want you to be able to be a part of the action there at the Coke Theater, so you'll be able to check it out. Just, get your friends together, come watch it all. It's actually a lot of fun. The good thing is, too, you might get to sit down next to someone as cool as hell or, even dark hell or whatever's going on.
You're on Ron Jobbert today.
Oh, yeah.
There always has to be at least one reference to the gods that actually show up in the graphics now. Ron has actually tainted all of us.
Yeah, he's really just ruined everything, ruined the company. I hope he's back there listening right now as I say these words, but we also have even more discounts going for you. You're really lucky, Twitch chat. You should be thanking me. 25% off some select esports content here. In particular, check out that, I think it's the Dr. Love Cupid skin, or rather, it's a really cool skin. They're all really good ones, so just check that out. Get those while they're cheap, Taco.
And I absolutely love getting those Smite skins. And for everybody back at home, it's always a solid opportunity. But of course, I think everybody here is also really looking forward to these matches today.
That's a good point. We really are excited to take a look here at these matchups. We're in particular, let's take a look at the teams we're going to be seeing here today and the schedule that they're going to be going through. Obey Alliance, Team Rival, those are going to be on the EU side of things. Already made it through. But the first set will be eUnited versus Luminosity. But let's go ahead and take a chance here to talk about Obey Rival, since we're not going to be seeing them till later in the day. I mean, Rival are looking good, Tolly, after they 3-0 Dignitas.
Rival have been always looking good since the spring split. Honestly, they went through a lot of changes since Season 3 when they were known as Cyclone GG. During the summer finals in Valencia, they went the distance, going against Dignitas, taking them to 5 games. They actually beat Obey Alliance in the semifinals 3-1, so this is a little bit of a grudge match here.
I don't know if I would necessarily call it as much of a grudge match as it is just a solid opportunity for both of these teams to really show the progression that they've made against each other. Rival in particular, I think, they didn't have the hottest online split this past season, but when it came down to playing at LAN, everybody knows that they're absolute beasts.
They just surprised us all when they defeated Dignitas here 3-0. That second game, that lasted nearly an hour long, and I think this was the first game, actually, where there was just not much in it to win it for Dignitas. They were definitely checked out mentally.
Yeah, Dignitas have had a rough time of it here this LAN finals, but that's not to take anything away from Rival, who have looked real strong. Everyone on that roster has a mind for the game, even their coach. We've seen him going around studying all these matchups, making sure that he's on point for these matchups. But let's go ahead and think about minds of the game. Over here with Obey, those guys are some smart guys over there, like BaRRaCCuDDa, Pretty Prime. Those are some guys that really know the game.
And you were talking about the coach from Rival, Alpha Jackal, but it was actually Hazer that used to be their coach before he jumped ship to Obey Alliance there, doing work for them too. But so far, every time that Obey and Rival face off against each other, it's been Alpha Jackal and the boys getting the slight edge.
It just becomes an incredibly cerebral match between these two teams because both of the coaches are really looking specifically into the drafts and trying to finalize the issues that they might have had with it, and then they just look to revamp entirely. Alpha Jackal, Rival in general, just loves switching it up every single time they come into a fresh game. And when you think about teams like Rival and teams like Obey, and they've got these players like BaRRaCCuDDa, like Pretty Prime, who have, they're noted for certain gods in their god pool, but they also just have the ability to pull out whatever they want.
And they had to definitely get tested through the ringer in the first matches here. It was 3-2 for Obey against Elevate going the distance, and against Dignitas, Rival got a clean 3-0 sweep, so that could be also a telltale sign that Obey Alliance are a little bit more prepared for the unexpected.
Yeah, that certainly could be the case. I mean, going up against Elevate, we saw in group stages, that wasn't Obey sleeping. That wasn't Obey struggling. That's just Elevate being the real deal there, totally. They able to come out along with energy through those group stages. But again, today is going to be about those 4 teams that are here in the finals. We talked about Obey and Rival and how good they're looking, but the set that we're going to be going into after this one, that's going to be eUnited going up against LG, the NA powerhouse.
And it's a very similar story between these two finals because it was eUnited that had a clean 3-0 sweep against Trifecta. I don't think that Trifecta kind of was prepared for the North American meta, whereas Luminosity going the distance against Space Station.
And for eUnited as well, I don't think we got a chance to really see as much out of them because of the fact that they could kind of recognize the weaknesses that Trifecta carried into this super regional. So for them, it's a little bit easier in the sense that they didn't really have to reveal too much, but against a team like Luminosity, it might be a little bit more complicated just because of the fact that these two teams haven't been shy about admitting that they've been scrim partners for a while now. So anytime you're facing off against people that you're accustomed to playing against, you can kind of have a general idea of what they're going to bring out.
Definitely a lot of mind games between these two teams going against each other here in the finals of North America. This is not necessarily do or die for them because they made HRX. You know, they are very happy and satisfied, but there's still a little bit of bragging rights to go.
That's right. They're playing here still for those bragging rights. And Taco, you kind of touched on it there, so I want to ask you, eUnited only playing 3 games in their set. Do you think that's to their benefit, or could LG be a little bit more warmed up, a little bit more ready? They've kind of gone the distance already.
I don't think that, I mean, it's already been enough time since those matches on Wednesday between these two teams. I don't think it's a circumstance of one team feeling more warmed up than the other. But for a team like eUnited, the main advantage that they had was they had the clean 3-0 against Trifecta. They knew they didn't really have to mix anything up, bring anything special out. When you saw Luminosity, we got the chance to see a pocket pick from their solo laner, Aquarius, who brought out the Thanatos. So eUnited is very much aware that that is a possibility, and there's only so much that can be told until these teams actually play as to whether or not we're going to get a chance to really see those kind of strategies come out again.
Something we can dissect is the picks and bans here potentially here. We're looking at the two coaches, and I'm looking at Luminosity specifically. Quintosh, what he was able to bring to Luminosity in such short amount of time since Season 3 is just really impressive to be able to kind of bleed in a little bit of European meta into Luminosity.
Venenu there giving a slight little kiss to the cam. It's always adorable, but these players, and I have to agree, when it comes to the coaches, you can really tell which teams give that respect to their coaches. And Luminosity, if you ask them, they will all seriously tell you Quintosh is he's pretty much the brains behind our drafts, and every single part that he makes happen when it comes to these compositions, he really puts a lot of thinking into them, and it's very evident how well it works out for these players and their playstyles.
And eUnited also has a little bit behind their sleeves where PolarBearMike, it's also that player coach that he brings to his team where it's just very difficult to lock down the goals of eUnited, which is why they've been so successful recently. If you ever follow this man on your screen on Twitter, you could just get a full frontal of his mindset.
Oh, yeah. PolarBearMike is not shy about being vocal there on Twitter, so you get to hear a lot about what's going on in his mindset, and it really is a treat, you know, if you're able to listen to any of that or just get a chance to talk to him like you saw on the desk. I mean, he really is a smart guy, funny guy, too, and it's been great getting to, you know, hear all these guys here at the LAN, but that brings it up, though. This is at a LAN. eUnited, as a team, they haven't been to a LAN like this. This is their first one. Is there anything to be said for that, for these 5 members playing together at this LAN, now up against the big boys of LG kind of for the first time?
This team has made significant changes, I think, both in their play styles as well as just their player mentalities. It's already been touched on before when we saw United play on Wednesday, where we covered just how much all of these players have seemed to improve both in and out of the game. And of course, you have to credit so much of that to PolarBearMike. Yep. He's just done massive benefits for the team.
He created such a positive atmosphere for eUnited as a whole. The way he just actually plays with Varizial, or Screammmmm right now that he's known as, and ranked, and you could just hear his thoughts on the desk and the way he's been able to transition that outside of the competitive scene into his own team makes it so much easier to just get along, because you got to think of the history of this team before when Pain de Beyond was on it here, aka the General, and PBM kind of is a general in his own way, except not too strict.
He has a much easier time meshing with the other players as well. I believe that this team synergy we've seen out of eUnited here at Super Regionals is probably a large amount of insight into what their team environment is actually like right now. The guys have all been really positive around each other, laughing, having a good time. And it's the same thing that can be said for them on stage. They're really just having so much fun together, and it's obvious when players are really having that kind of synergy in game.
And LG on the flip side as well has a lot of synergy. We look at the duel lane specifically between Jeff and BaRRaCCuDDa there. They've been together since forever. Immediately after the launch tournament, once DareToCare left, then they've been playing since then, always relaxing and having a good old sip before the game.
Able to keep the smoothie safe this time, it looks like. All right there, BaRRaCCuDDa, so go ahead and enjoy it there on stream. But I mean, I'm glad you brought it up with BaRRaCCuDDa in particular. I mean, one of the most winning LAN players, just period, aside from, I guess, those energy guys, which are breaking the curve for everybody else. But it just feels like if you've got BaRRaCCuDDa on your team, you're going to be winning totally.
Especially when your lane partner is JeffHindla.
Sure.
The communication between these two that just kind of evolves throughout the rest of the lanes makes it so much easier for them whenever they're in an online LAN environment. It doesn't really matter. They were able to take a lot of these other newer players and then make them feel so comfortable, especially Aquarius in that solo lane.
Yeah, in particular, JeffHindla. I mean, you talked about PolarBearMike, the support there for eUnited. JeffHindla, the support here for LG, is also just a big part of what this team is able to do so well. In fact, we were able to sit down and talk a little bit with JeffHindla, so let's go ahead and take a listen to what he had to say.
Playing support is basically about doing as much as you can with as little as you can and trying to just make everybody's life on your team as easy as you can. Like, so you just have to make their job as easy as possible with as little farm, as little, anything as you can as possible. You try and set things up, you try and, save your carry, save other tanks. It's obviously changed a lot throughout the years for sure because of different metas, different gods, different actives, different, items. But the idea behind it is you're looking to set stuff up and you're looking to protect people. It's still that same kind of core, just ideal. Or ideology, I don't know. You have to consistently evolve your play style, right? And it's a combination of people you've beaten and people who've beaten you. And you just have to look at was this right because it's just right and this is just better than what we're doing, or is it right because we made big mistakes going through? And you just have to take that and look at it and then try this, try that. This worked better, this didn't work better, and just kind of constantly progress through it. We basically hit the same exact stop the last two Worlds, right? It's Game 5 against Energy in the semifinals. And, I mean, it's rough to lose in that, not the same spot, but basically the same spot 2 years in a row. But, I mean, when you lose, it never feels good to lose, but when you lose to the guys who won and you took them to Game 5, it's it's not as bad, I guess, but you just gotta play better. That's really what it comes down to, right? Just gotta play better, and you gotta.
And JeffHindla, he kind of touched on it there, totally. It feels like LG, when they go up against NA, they do well, but it's EU that kind of felt like their Achilles heel here.
Losing to Energy 2 times in a row there. But more importantly was last year in Super Regionals, LG barely made it through into Worlds, going through a group play. Now they have a better chance of getting a better seeding so that they might be able to avoid Energy, at least in the upper half of the bracket.
Well, we are ready to go ahead and get into picks and bans. LG going up against eUnited. Game 1 of a potential best of 5 here between the top 2 teams in North America. And Taco, I mean, we've gotten to see a lot happen over here. The picks and bans are so important. What are you expecting to see?
I'd imagine there to be a similarity with Luminosity probably trying to keep Osiris or Chulainn away from Benji on eUnited. There's been a lot of talk in the arena from these players saying you pretty much just don't want to allow Benji to have a god that can play the lane as much of a lane bully style as an Osiris.
You talk about those two specific gods, but the way Benji was able to play the Hercules against Trifecta was very impressive. He didn't allow Kiki to actually play the game, especially when Venenu played Morrigan to transform into that Hercules. So I think more importantly, it's this Morrigan pick from LG that's going to be stripped away.
We do see Serket already banned out by eUnited, taking a bit of a look there towards the jungle of Luminosity, limiting some of what Maz can do, and also just no one wants to go up against Serket. I mean,
nobody wants to deal with Serket. She has a ton of control, and the true damage allows you to be able to build her way more defensive than what people are probably accustomed to, so just too much of a hindrance. Loving the AMC ban, though, even though Luminosity could utilize that to their own advantage, recognizing that it's just a very strong pick in general right now, taking that option away.
It's one of the best lane pushers at level 1. You put a blue stone on that bad boy, and you're just going to be able to invade any which lane you want. And on the flip, eUnited taking away Hou-Yi, really trying to focus out BaRRaCCuDDa.
Yeah, it looks like the focus here has really been on those, like you said, those pushers, those ones with high clear early on. That jungle camp is not jungle camp, but jungle control early on in the game is so important here, Taco.
Of course, you never want to allow a Hou-Yi to have that pressure of being able to not only self-clear for the jungle, but also just pushing out that lane. Bluestone alongside of the Ricochet makes it incredibly easy to get some dominance going in that side of the map. And when Ricochets start getting factored into team fights as well, and especially around those Gold Fury objectives, that's an instance you don't want to have to deal with.
eUnited now can play a little bit more aggressive, not having to worry about this Hou-Yi, not just the Ricochet that can bounce around double, triple, but also the Suns that's going to be that slowing minefield. So Luminosity, without these 200 picks, I'm not really too worried for BaRRaCCuDDa because his God pool is just so wide.
With this early of a Hou-Yi ban, though, it could possibly be alluding to maybe wanting that Izanami selection. She's still a hunter that can have a lot of lane pressure and dominance. And additionally, her first ability with that boosted attack speed that changes from the boomerang attacks to singular autos is probably one of the best boxing actives in the game.
Morrigan going to be the first pick locked in for eUnited. So you already talked a little bit about how priority this pick is. So eUnited taking that one away for themselves.
Venenu going to be feeling very comfortable on this god, and something he was able to do was in the beginning of the game when Scream was playing the Ratatoskr, he would try to accompany that with double global pressure, but then in the later stages, you switch to the Bruiser, you're going to be more tanky, harder to kill, you're going to get off more rotation of cooldowns, and then have more control for your team.
This Morrigan selection is also incredibly smart because it's a pick that Luminosity might have been trying to secure for themselves as well, just because we saw how great of a performance Baskin had on that the other day. And the Ratatoskr, this is another selection I was expecting to come through from Luminosity, but because eUnited took the Morrigan, they technically have a Ratatoskr if they choose to.
That's why they picked Morrigan right off the bat, because they knew that Hercules and Ratatoskr would be that highly contested pick, and without this global pressure now from eUnited going for a double Bruiser combo between solo jungle, they're going to be leaning more about that backline penetration than trying to gank these side lanes early on.
Soul coming in for LG2, so trying to get someone in that mid lane who can provide some big damage with that ultimate. But as you said, the more of these big time ultimates that come in, the more scary this Morrigan pick ends up being for eUnited. Likely it'll be Rat, but that just gives them more and more options.
What's ideal for Venenu right now, though, is he has the option for the Ratatoskr if he wants that semi-global presence with the ult, but he also has a perfect dive composition with the rest of his team. Ravana, Chulainn, those are guys who are looking to get into your face and stay there. And when you have a Morrigan added into the mix, that's technically a second Ravana or a secondary Chulainn, and it's going to be really difficult for Luminosity to escape the team fights if they end them on the wrong foot.
No one can feel safe here from Luminosity with that Morrigan pick, like you were alluding to. There's too much frontline, and I think Luminosity needs to try to figure out a way to get this penetration to be able to melt these targets. Now, considering they already have Ratatoskr, we're not going to be seeing a Bacchus or anything like Homiefe was able to do on Space Station, but and without a Hou-Yi, there needs to be some options for BaRRaCCuDDa in the late game, and I'm expecting maybe a Ram here.
I would like a Ram selection for BaRRaCCuDDa because it provides that hyper carry presence and it'd be a strong asset alongside of the Soul. But for eUnited, I kind of want to see a Fafnir ban here because with Luminosity taking that Soul, it does leave open the option for those hyper late game carries. And if they have a Fafnir combined on that, it's going to be really difficult for eUnited to protect those objectives.
Already banning away the Ganesh, but something we haven't seen or even talked about yet is this RDO. Neither team picking or banning it quite yet, but in the group play, it was almost, the go-to pick for a lot of these teams.
RDO was certainly a high priority pick there for him, but as you said, Luminosity appeared to be focusing a little bit more towards PandaCat, trying to limit those hunter options, whereas eUnited ban away the Ganesh. But Fafnir, as you mentioned, would really go well with it, not just in that late game, but even up against objectives to help them burn those just a little bit faster. So it depends totally on what eUnited want to try and focus.
Do they want to focus out reducing some of the objective control with the Fafnir, or do they want to reduce some of the team fight power that the RDO can provide by being able to get get in that backline very easily, especially opting to go for Blink. That's not something JeffHindla is known to do very often. He likes to kind of sit in the backline and peel for his team. Xingqian, though, has been favored by Jeff.
Xingqian in general has been seeing a lot of gameplay here at Super Regionals, not only from European teams, but from some of the NA ones as well. And it's just because he can provide a lot of team fighting control with that ultimate, the ability to scoop up, especially a bunch of warriors who probably aren't all going to necessarily be opting for those purification beads early on. Robin might have the CC immunol, but once he goes in, he's going to be left maybe a little bit out of position at times.
Jingwei picked up because BaRRaCCuDDa wants to play super safe this game. He wants to farm it up and get to the mid game very cleanly. And the fact that they picked the Hunter here first is very clear that Luminosity don't care if they get the Fafnir or the Artio. That's why they prioritized this Hunter pick, knowing that eUnited still needed one.
And it was a situation that they kind of forced eUnited into. I think that might be part of why they banned that Xingqian, to make sure that at least one of them is open for themselves. So they take away the Fafnir from themselves and that Ram. So they've got a lot of late game damage, as you said, to go along with their dive comp.
I'm not entirely convinced that it's going to be an Artio selection here, though, for Luminosity. My primary concern for that being that even though the Cripple Field would be great against some of the picks from eUnited, they wouldn't necessarily have as much CC as they might be looking for. And it's going to be the Bacchus instead from Luminosity, and actually a really fun wombo combo coming out between Jingwei and Bacchus with the belly flop and then Jingwei having her own knockup. You could potentially just keep members in the air for long periods of time.
It's going to set up Soul's damage as well between that Stellar Burst and Supernova. I'm expecting a lot of early rotations here because Bacchus is generally known as this aggressive early game support. The Intoxicate just does so much damage, and I think LG want to fight.
And this is interesting. I like that LG picked this up. It shows me that PolarBearMike's confident because we saw Bacchus didn't have that much luck. I think it was yesterday when Trifecta played it, but they know they can run it well. Now that you had a chance to see both these comps, though, Taco, who you got here, eUnited or LG?
I think eUnited has a pretty sick draft, actually. I'm going to have to favor them for game one.
I'm actually going the opposite way. Luminosity here, they have Aquarius playing the Hercules. I think he's going to have a slight edge against Benji.
All right, we are split here on the desk, but let's go ahead and get it over to the casters so we can get this game started. Tom, Aggro, and Hindu, take it away.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon and welcome to Super Regionals. I'm Tom Battinger, joined here by Ryan Bailey, Hindu Man, otherwise known as Aggro and Suspended. We've got a fantastic North American finals here for you today. eUnited taking on Luminosity Gaming. I feel like LG is the team that everybody expected to be here, and eUnited was people like, well, they are number one.
I mean, they've looked great all fall split long, and these two teams, I'm so excited they get to meet in the finals because they've been scrim partners throughout the majority of the fall split. They played in the final week of the SPL. They split there as well. So you know these two are very evenly matched and are very familiar with one another.
When it comes down to it, though, they play, I would say, more traditional than some of the other teams that we've seen here this weekend, most notably looking at teams like Elevate, etc. Yeah. But at the same time, they have their own styles. We heard on the desk, Taco was very happy with the overall draft coming out for eUnited. But if you look at LG, they got all their comfort picks.
And LG's composition does look pretty good as well. The one thing I'm looking at in this game is eUnited Venenu. Like, he's playing this Morrigan. That's going to be a big pick. There's a lot of opportunities for him to potentially go crazy because of the amount of different gods that are going to be very useful in these team fights.
Ravana being the big one for me, that's going to be the main transformation target for Venenu. That's why I love that early Ravana selection alongside the Chulainn to give Benji something that he's comfortable with and something that he can be aggressive with. Remember, Hercules being picked very early on is kind of just a shot at Benji, making sure that he doesn't get the god that he did so well on earlier on against their semifinal matchup against Trifecta. But that Chulainn has a little bit of anti-heal in the kit, so it's going to make it not quite as easy for Aquarius in that lane.
It's not just that as well. It's also with that Morrigan, when you look at the roster LG have drafted, there's a Ratatoskr. Yeah. I mean, that is another potential engage opportunity for Venenu to go with here, with getting himself out of combat, maybe forcing a reset, and then, hey, we can go again now.
Again, looking at the other side, though, Ratatoskr is the god that Mass kind of busted on the scene with. He was like, hey, look, here I am, Ratatoskr. And that was the character that really, I think, Mask made that first stride forward with to really solidify himself as one of the regular guys into one of the premier junglers. Going back to the old pick, I got to say I like it.
I mean, he's phenomenal on it, and he played it a lot last year, had a lot of success with it last year, and it continues to be very strong for him, and it's a hotly contested pick between these two teams. That's why I loved the Morrigan pick so much. First selection for eUnited because it forces Luminosity to take Ratatoskr Ratatoskr, because then you have to deal with one potentially with the Morrigan ult, but at least you don't have to deal with two.
That's true. And the other thing about this as well is, like, you can tell it's a North American draft as well. We saw the European things. There's a little bit of an addition from some of the European sort of spice that we've seen,
American.
but it is still North American. You can really feel it's a North American final, and you can see it's their sort of play style.
Everybody fighting over the Soul. Soul is like basically holding the American flag, also Canadian, I guess. That NA flag is being held by Soul pretty much throughout the entirety of Super Regionals and even the regular season. Ratatoskr has been on both sides, but really more of a North American pick as well. So, yeah, I like to see that individualism coming out from the region.
And you can tell how familiar these two teams are because we're seeing things like Kernino spanned away, and we've seen very little, if any, Kernino so far here at Super Regionals, but to throw a ban at it in your final is just eUnited knowing that Luminosity has played it at least a little bit and have the ability to pull it out.
And I'm pretty surprised we're not seeing too much Kernino overall through the tournament too, especially against like triple tank, because those frontline tanks, I mean, you are forced into Piggy. There's no choice.
I don't know. I think here at Super Regionals Hunters, you're getting all the farm in the world.
True.
Don't go for the mid game pick. Go for the super late game pick. We're seeing the amusing cops. We're seeing the gods like that. So I think that's where those coming from.
It's more to do with the fact that when you've got these team fights going on, and they are big team fights where they're all grouped together, that ultimate coming out from Kernels can make a big impact because it doesn't get diminishing returns either, which can really be a big point.
Plus, having that additional penetration in your kit from the shifting seasons is really great against those triple tanks. So it can be a very flexible pick in this meta.
Very true. Just bear with us one more time. We're going to get into game in just a couple of minutes. Players having a couple of issues getting things off the ground, but as soon as we start it, we should be flying. So one more time, eUnited versus Luminosity, best of 5 scenario. Both teams fought their way out a number of days ago, and that's what I want to bring up next, is the fact that the past 2 days have been group stages. So eUnited and LG have just kind of been iced out, right? BaRRaCCuDDa, I mean, has he played Smite in 3 days? How do you feel about that?
The big thing about this is, yes, he's not played in 3 days, but all they've done is watch. So they've seen the meta develop throughout, but not had chance to partake in the meta changes. So now they're coming in like, okay, so we've seen these things. Is this something we want to adapt to? Is this something we want to go with as well?
But at the same time, if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's there to hear it, what the hell actually happened? eUnited and Luminosity, they all got to watch this meta unfold, but they didn't take part in it. So are they part of it?
No, they don't really need to be, though, because neither of them have played the last 3 days. So they can continue to play their own meta and try and take what they've learned from everyone else and maybe apply a little bit of it into their match. Look, these two teams have been around the arena a lot. Sometimes when teams qualify and don't have to play for a couple days, we don't see them for a couple days. That has not been the case for either of these two teams. They have been ingesting all of the Smite from Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and I'm expecting that they're going to have at least a little bit of adjustments coming into what they thought they were going to be playing.
As a player, though, you were a player pretty recently, right?
Was he?
He says
Recently
so.
enough.
He says so.
Okay.
Well, a couple of days off, is that good or bad for you?
I like it. I think that if you can continue to work with your team, and the big deal is you don't want to have a couple days off against a team that's been playing every day for the last few days. That's where I think the disparity can kind of come in, and that they're warmed up, they're prepared, and you aren't. But if you've both been off for the last 3 days, I think it kind of washes. I'm not worried about it.
It's funny, we've seen in the past as well with these sort of situations where it doesn't really matter too much to the teams. They've already qualified for hi-rez Expo, but there is additional prizing, but it's not just that, it's the #1 seed. That's going to be really influential because whoever comes out of Europe is the #1 seed. You're not going to have to face to the finals, worst case scenario.
You know, if you're not here, it's kind of tough to sell like, well, they're fighting for pride, right?
Sure.
But if you know these guys, you know 100% that actually matters. I tweeted out during the picks and bans, me and Ryan are sitting out there in the pit, as I like to call it, watching the game, and the first ban comes out, and Baskin just goes, "Nice ban, idiots!" Yep. And I was like, so this is how it's going to go. All right, no problem.
I thought Jeff was going to go in too, but then Jeff goes, "Hey, Panda, be my friend," and that's all it was. So I just
Panda's like,
Jeff.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, look, just like when you have your friendly competitions with your friends, you want, it's fun, but at the same time, you want to embarrass them. You want to make sure that you've got all the bragging rights so that you can be like, hey, remember that time that we 3-0'd you at Super Regionals when you thought you were good? That's important to these guys, and they're very close, but like I said, that makes it that much sweeter if you're able to really beat them.
I mean, look, we can't really talk about our Smite play, but Graham and I play a lot of, we play a lot of cards together, and Graham and I will wind up in the finals, and like, it's fun because you play with a bunch of randos, and you're like, haha, we did really well enough to get here.
Yeah.
Haha. And then midway through game 1, you're like, I hope you lose lose miserably.
Serious
and I think
business.
that's what, like, you know, Jeff is sitting here like, let's be friends, haha. And then one belly flop intoxicate, and PandaCat's going to be like, I know where you live, so stop this, right?
I'd actually go into that Bacchus pick as well. Go and bring it right back into the game now. This Bacchus pick is interesting to me because it's only really been Jeff that's pulled it out. And we've seen a lot of Stone of Gaia. We're back on screen.
We're back on screen.
Stone of Gaia as well. That's the interesting thing.
Yeah.
We're going to see the Stone of Gaia, which
We definitely
we've seen
will.
a lot of Stone of Gaia as the tournament's gone on.
Now, here's the idea. Just like before, whenever Stone of Gaia immuned all knockups and it made characters like Fenrir and Ares feel really bad, the strategies are you either don't pick any knockups or you pick so many that some of them are going to work. And that's been the idea here for Luminosity. The passive isn't as strong against knockups as it used to be. Now it just increases your regen heavily, really, really quickly. But you're going to get Herc pulled, and then by the time you get Rat ulted, that passive won't be up. By the time you get belly flopped, the Rat ult will be effective or the Herc pull will be effective. So with how many knockups Luminosity has, Stone of Gaia absolutely should be a pickup here, but it might not be the make or break.
And it's also not just about the knockup. I mean, the Bacchus pick, everybody looks square at the knockup, and you probably should be. But Jeff also on the Fat Man, I mean, this is peanut butter and jelly. This is ketchup and eggs. This is as classic as a combination goes. And Jeff, sure, obviously the knockup is how you find your initiation, but he's going to lean heavily on the natural tankiness of the character and a lot of the other aspects that Bacchus brings.
Seeing BaRRaCCuDDa and PandaCat start in the mid lane, though, is so strange. At least this is something that you've seen happen a lot, but both those characters are generally left on their own in the dual lane just to farm up in the early stages, generally in a 2v1. But now we're in this scenario here.
I like this come around here. Just chased out by Luminosity. Venenu finds himself having to pop a potion already.
There's good pressure there, and that's the risk of having a 2v2 that doesn't have one team be significantly ahead of the other. I like the idea here, though, from Venenu and PandaCat. PandaCat should pick this red buff up and immediately just go back to left because he's losing farm by staying in mid now because you aren't invading, you aren't getting pressure, and now he's going to be able to pick up some of this wave if PolarBearMike wants to hold it for him, which, of course, he won't because it's PBM. And now it's going to be BaRRaCCuDDa who's slightly behind because Jeff won't be able to come in and help on this purple buff invade.
That's fair, and he might get it stolen away now because of that. This red is going to probably go down. Actually, no.
Got it.
BaRRa just in time to the rescue.
Nice last hit there coming out from the Hunter. Mask and the sprint is popped. There's one knockup. There's two knockups. And PolarBearMike, he's going to be the first casualty of this finals. Luminosity on the board. JeffHindla with the kill.
That's Mask being familiar with how eUnited likes to play this early game. When they don't get the invade successfully, they'll go towards their red buff, head towards dual lane, and then try and interrupt BaRRaCCuDDa. Also a huge deal that BaRRa is the one who actually secures that red buff. Don't know if that would have been enough XP to push eUnited's dual lane over to level 3, but if at least would have made it so that BaRRa wouldn't be as likely to fight. And he wouldn't have had a red buff to do as much damage to PBM.
And the kill goes to JeffHindla as well. If you notice, he started off with Boots 1 here, so he's looking for a faster Boots opportunity. More than likely going for the Talaria, so the extra mobility will allow him to rotate around the map a little bit more quicker.
You bring up Talaria. If you're Bacchus, I always like to see the aggressive move. I like Boots and the Magi. I think that kind of Bacchus is the warrior guardian, and I like to see that come out from him.
At some point, yes, but at the same time, for the same reasons, I really like the tank boots for him.
Baskin in a lot of trouble here. The Aegis already down, and now he's wrapped around on. In comes Mask trying to support, but Baskin will fall to Scream, and now Venenu's on the run.
Mask gonna get the last hit as well, so a nice little back and forth, but Scream can't find the last hit. The tick damage not good enough. Bluestone will be the ire of the woes, and Mask walks away clean, 2-1 Luminosity.
Scream was on that right-hand side, was able to wrap around, and Baskin just didn't have enough information, no wards in the early stages here. And look at the Chalice of the Oracle that PolarBearMike picked up in that support role where JeffHindla did not. He just bought some early wards, but they weren't on that right-hand side.
Meanwhile, here's the jump on the right-hand side. Aquarius once stood
in
the solo lane, but Benji changes the name, takes another partner, and takes down the solo laner. Aquarius falls down.
That's the power of that Ravana. I mean, that ultimate just does so much work in those engagements, and it allowed Benji to help clean up the kill and get the kill.
And I mean, Aquarius had used his ultimate in order to clear the wave, just trying to get pressure, but usually once you use your ult to clear the wave, you back afterwards. Instead, he was just using it to get pressure, but ended up coming back to bite him because Benji had the perfectly timed transformation. And that Ravana ultimate, man, it would talk about an impactful one. Not only does it give you a ton of damage on the actual character that you hit, but it acts as a mini Sunder, meaning that everyone else is doing more damage to that target, and it gives you damage mitigation on top of that.
Right now, if you're at all familiar with these teams, you kind of have to be, well, if you're an eUnited fan, pretty happy, and if you're not, well, the other side. The right side of the map, the Fire Giant side of the map, is definitely the heavy lifting side of the map for eUnited. Benji and Scream do a lot of the carrying for the squad, and when you see 1 kill on Benji, 1 kill on Scream at 4 minutes, you know things are going right for the red, white, and blue.
Now, that being said, Mask has actually done a great job of farming. He's top of the net worth charts right now, so Luminosity's right side of the map certainly not faltering too much. Aquarius is a little bit behind, but that comes down to the fact that Mask has not been there to make sure that he can stay safe. If necessary, Mask can head over, make sure that Aquarius gets a wave or two without any pressure, and then you can start to kind of give that lead back to your solo laner for Luminosity.
And I will say, Mask just looking to farm during the early game is quite wise against someone like the Ravana in the jungle. We've already talked about the warrior jungles, that they need to get off ahead of steam, and that's exactly what Scream is doing. The assassin, he'll start to appear a little bit later on if you're in this matchup. Normally you see the assassins go a little bit harder, like the Circuit earlier on.
But right now, Mask has his Acorn online, and so he's kind of looking to start a little nonsense, which he does. Aquarius comes through, but doesn't get the message to back off. Mask going to come through with the ultimate a little bit late, finds the kill, but unfortunately, after the fact that Aquarius falls down, PolarBearMike with the transformation, the jump, Mask follows, here's Scream to say no.
But Mask is still going to be in trouble now because Scream might be able to run him down with Venenu coming in, turning into another Raven. They'll turn their attention to JeffHindla and make sure it's a 2 for 2 with the fight still going.
Scream needs to be at least a little bit careful, though, because Mask and Best can have plenty of damage here to bring him down and only take 1 Acorn Stun from Mask. Really good response by Luminosity. Aquarius just gets caught out there, and again, it comes down to Benji getting those fire elementals, pinging level 8, gives him a little bit more damage, and he shreds through Aquarius very quickly, but a well-timed mitigate wounds from Aquarius, make sure that he can get his boulder off, make sure that he can get as much damage off as he can before he dies, and a better rotation from JeffHindla just being more impactful in that fight.
Problem with the pathing, though, that sort of semicircle coming out that backs up the Fire Giant, that split up Luminosity right there. You saw the majority of the squad go left. Aquarius went right, and unfortunately for him, that was the wrong call by his lonesome. A couple of eUnited members collapsed on him, and at the end of the day, 3 beats 1.
And I love the fact as well, this Hercules focus coming out from eUnited early on. One of the things Hercules is going to do, yes, late game, he's still going to be Hercules, he's still going to tank up a lot, but put him down in the early game means that transition to the mid-game, later stages takes a little bit longer.
But eUnited needs to be wary that they need to change targets soon enough. I mean, it's not going to be too long until Aquarius is already too tanky to be the focus for eUnited in a team fight scenario. And that was really the downfall of Obey against their set, against Elevate at the very beginning stages. They were investing too much into the tanks from Elevate. eUnited cannot afford to fall for the same trap.
Right side, a little bit of aggression over these fire elementals. Probably nothing to be too concerned about. Just a little bit of a nonsense. Luminosity able to posture themselves professionally and take control.
It's funny when you see those little skirmishes around there and just like the look at each of it, it's generally, you can tell there might be something happening there when the mid laners are turning up too.
Yeah.
You saw Venenu, and Venenu is something that Luminosity have to be aware of throughout. This stealth is very impactful and will continue to be as the game goes on.
It only gets better as the game goes on for sure, but without his ultimate available right now, that's why you see eUnited being a little bit more conservative with their positioning on that team fight in Oracle or Fire Elementals contestant than their last one, because last time Van had his ult, could transform into the Ravana, and that's what ends up making the big difference to kill JeffHindla. That Changeling ultimate is on such a long cooldown that it takes some time to come back. Baskin had his ultimate ready to go already.
You know, it's interesting. We see a number of characters. Odin is the first one that comes to mind, that starts as Odin and then slowly turns just into his ultimate. It's the opposite for Morrigan, I find, where Morrigan in the beginning is generally just the ult bot turned into somebody else and use their tools, but then late game, that invisible stun, she's just Loki.
And that's why she pairs so well with characters like Ravana, like Ratatoskr, early game impactful gods that she can transform into and make that impact. She doesn't need to have an impactful transformation late game, because she is impactful late game by herself.
And it's just that damage that she can put out from the stealth as well that just is destroying. We saw Baskin do it the other day, when actually back on the very first day of Super Regionals, where it caused so many actual problems for them. And then you actually saw the turnaround plays that came out because of that.
What's also fun playing around with the invis is watching Venenu kind of dip out in the right jungle, go invis, and then cross the street back into the left. You can really keep the opponent on the back foot. Right now, Mask trying to protect his speed buff. Scream obviously not going for it, the timer not there, but wanting to get the aggressive vision, and that's definitely been a trend for Luminosity on both sides of the map.
I will say over the course of this tournament that you've seen the focus from North America be a little bit heavier towards enemy speed buffs than we have out of Europe. Yes, Europe still care about them, but not to the extent North America has shown as time's gone on, you know? Like on the right-hand side, it's always, is the speed buff up? Let's invade, let's look for a kill just before as it spawns.
And sometimes we've seen teams actually be successful looking at the other side of the map, just trying to put pressure on the red buffs, and that's an adjustment that I think these teams, we might see them make going farther into this set.
BaRRaCCuDDa getting real aggressive there on the left-hand side, trying to bring PandaCat down, gets him down to about yellow. Conservatively, the rest of the team showing up to provide some defense. PBM gets jumped on, however. The burp won't be successful because PBM has a jump of his own.
But BaRRaCCuDDa did use his ultimate there, so you saw the amount of aggression he was really looking for with that BaRRaCCuDDa play there. Just looking to keep the pressure on with PandaCat and continue causing the problems for them. PolarBearMike now going to freeze the wave here more often than not to make sure PandaCat can make sure he doesn't lose any experience.
And this is really important because PandaCat just finished off those Devourer's Gauntlets, meaning that those stacks are very, very important, whereas BaRRaCCuDDa went for the Devourer's Gauntlets right off the bat in order to start his stacking early on. I mean, just take a look at what both hunters have available to them. It's a 50 stack Devourer's Gauntlets with boots and even a light blade for BaRRaCCuDDa against boots and Devo Gauntlets for PandaCat, but he's only at 10 stacks, so BaRRaCCuDDa has a great opportunity to play aggressive right now in this matchup.
Funny enough, can we see wards placed as well? Because we did see at the start of the game, PolarBearMike started off with that Chalice, and then eventually you saw the Chalice get picked up by JeffHindla as well. Surprised by the the differences in that. I think it was more to do with maybe we saw the Fafnir looking for the early wall placements to make sure there's no real cheese at the start of the game. But then Jeff has kind of answered that back with one of his own.
Well, Jeff gets to finish off his boots before PolarBearMike by picking up the Oracle, the Ward Chalice later on in his build. So Jeff didn't really get a chance to make too much out of that early boots. I'm not sure if he had them completed before PBM on that fight on the right-hand side where it ended up being JeffHindla being the bigger impact in that team fight. But either way, now that they've both got, their Jade Emperor's crown and their boots and that Ward Chalice, you're not too worried about either one of them falling behind in the Ward category.
Well, we're almost up to 11 minutes here, and kills tied up at 4, gold tied up as well at 29, and eUnited and Luminosity looking pretty strong here, just keeping each other at bay, which these teams are usually, I won't say the most aggressive, but more on the aggressive side than not, and you kind of just want to keep each other on the other side.
Take into account, when you look at the gold lead, it's ever so slightly in favor of eUnited, which when you actually think about it too, First Blood went to Luminosity, which shows that eUnited are technically out-farming Luminosity across the map because that First Blood gold is worth 400.
And Baskin is actually a little bit behind Venenu early on, which is not what you expect in the Soul versus Morrigan matchup. Morrigan's early wave clear, not too bad, not quite as good as Soul's, but it's not a big disparity. But Soul's so safe and she can play so aggressive with that Disapparate that usually it lends to Soul's getting a little bit further ahead in the mid lane.
We mentioned those Stone of Guys too. Have a little look at those Stone of Guys on there. Left-hand side, Benji's already got one, but BaRRaCCuDDa pressured out so far.
Yeah, eUnited looking for positioning for the Gold Fury. They know the Oracles are coming up right about now, literally right now. Big heads up on that timer, which is why you see them push up into the enemy jungle, looking to catch Luminosity on the come here, because eUnited got there first.
I love the build coming out from Scream here, going for an early Brawler's Beat Stick, because now this opens the door for him ganking the right lane and killing Aquarius before that heal could really be too impactful in that fight. It also gives the option for Venenu to have some anti-heal in his kit if he wants to go over to the solo side of the map and try and make an impact. And because of the threat of Venenu transforming into that Ravana, transforming into a Chulainn, someone who can do big physical damage, it's actually Baskin going into a Dynasty Plate helm. It's also even the Ratatoskr threat of transformation coming from his own side that forces him into this Dynasty Plate helm, which does hurt your damage a decent amount in the early stages. Baskin not going to be able to do quite as much as you would expect around this 13-minute mark, but it does give him at least a little bit more safety against the dive potential for eUnited.
But I'm a little bit concerned for Luminosity here against Benji now. With this Stone of Gaia online, 3 of the gods Luminosity have are focused around knockups, so he's going to get a lot of sustain, which means he's going to be very hard to bring down throughout these engagements.
Well, Benji uses the knockup of his own. Mask and Aquarius do what you guys are talking about and come over here on the right-hand side. But Benji kind of just hold his own, not just holding his own, but being aggressive in the 2v1. supports meet up in mid-rotation towards the solo lane, and Benji still content with standing on the enemy's front lawn.
I know it's what I was saying. Both the supports end up on the right-hand side when the speed buffs are around because they both realize there could be a potential of an engagement.
And that's why I loved how aggressive Benji was playing in that lane right in front of Mask, because any poke right before an invade is the most relevant it can be.
So far, a little bit of aggression here on the left side. Not going to catch BaRRaCCuDDa sleeping. He'll be able to retreat.
But I do like the idea of eUnited there to rotate to the left-hand side, especially when the speed buffs were just about up. BaRRa and Panda will both be aware that when speed buffs spawn, there could be aggression between the two of them because they can take a one-on-one trade.
The more I think about this Jing pick, the more I love it for Luminosity, because what does Ratatoskr do really well is move around the map. And normally we see Jing against Ratatoskr because that ultimate gets a lot less value when you're just giving Jing an easy route out with that gank. So what is, you have the Ratatoskr if you're Luminosity, but remember that Morrigan can transform into it, so Luminosity kind of defending against the gank that they themselves have.
Gold Fury started, and with the transformation from PBM, looks like it's going to be a hard commit. Venenu already burned the invis. Look out for the flank from behind by BaRRaCCuDDa, which is why LG comes through. eUnited brings the Gold Fury into the cove, and nobody can find it but eUnited. Successful objective push by EU, and they're looking for an exit.
PandaCat's going to go in, or get pressured by Mask in main dealing, but then Baskin's ultimate comes through, then BaRRa too. So Gold Fury, yes, it goes to eUnited, but the fight's going a different story.
Completely 3-for-1 so far. Venenu going to make that a 3-for-2. Low is the mid laner for eUnited. He'll be chased out successfully, but Benji versus the world finds the push on a 1. Looking for the kill on a BaRRaCCuDDa or JeffHindla, whichever comes first. The Thorns chases the Hunter away, and now Benji on the chase for Aquarius, not ready to give up just yet.
He's got that damage already from that Chulainn transformation form, but needs to be a little bit careful because he's about to lose it. Nice jump up and over that driving strike, which would have set BaRRaCCuDDa up nicely, but Ven is still looking for it.
Just off the mark with that. That would have been such a different story, but now Venenu's in trouble. He's dead.
Benji can't control this one either with that little amount of rage. I like the try from Venenu, and honestly, even though he dies, that's just missing the ball. I want to see him make that play 10 times out of 10 because he's going to hit it 9 times out of 10.
eUnited's Gold Fury pull there was well thought out, and it was actually just a ward hidden in the little cove there for Luminosity that allowed them to have the information of that eUnited was doing it. I love the idea to pull it into the Gold Fury pit, kind of taking a page out of Snoopy's book, who loves to do that so much, and try and sneak away a Gold Fury. PandaCat is more than willing to take that up at this point. I mean, he's already got the Executioner done, but to invest that much is scary.
The blink forward! Scream not going to be able to find it. Luminosity get the consolation prize of the Portal Demon, but eUnited, they wind up on the bad side of the team fight post Gold Fury, but still get what they were looking for, up about 2K now because of the objective.
And go back to that little team fight engagement too. I mean, Benji was over half health still through that whole engagement, and that's what I was a bit concerned about, is they're going to have a difficult time bringing down this Chulainn with the build he's gone for and the sort of CC potential that Luminosity have on the table.
Well, Luminosity already invested so much to kill PandaCat and PolarBearMike. That's a pretty easy cleanup potential for Benji in that situation. In the further team fights, Luminosity is going to try and be a little bit more wary of where Benji is and when he's coming into the team fight to try and blow him up very quickly, because BaRRaCCuDDa is the same level as Benji, and while Benji has a lot of HP in that build, it's not a lot of physical defense. As soon as BaRRaCCuDDa finishes off what should be a chin size now right after this Executioner, it's going to be a real easy time for him to shred through Benji as long as those Thorns aren't available.
I like the idea coming out from eUnited, but unfortunately they were just a couple of seconds short. 3 players walked through that portal and they said, hey, why don't we catch him by the portal?
Just wait here. Well, one thing looking at relics as well, I mean, you see double Thorns, 2, one for the jungle, one for the solo from each team, but also that frenzy from Jeff. If eUnited actually are patient with their Thorns a little bit and wait for Jeff to pop that frenzy, first of all, that could smell disaster for Luminosity.
I love this frenzy pickup. It's something that we haven't seen a lot of. I know we saw it in at least one other set. May have been Obey. They usually like to pick up some different relic choices there, but it's a really underrated item and one that's great with things like Soul and Jing on your team when you've got 2 auto-attack oriented characters that can make benefit from that extra penetration that it gives you whenever it's upgraded. I mean, these towers won't stand for long, and it's the only way to really compete with Fafnir. Fafnir kind of brings a built-in frenzy with that AoE coerce, but now Luminosity have the same sort of quick end potential that eUnited have with the Fafnir.
I also like the fact that it's on the Bacchus. He's going to use it right before his Intoxicate and then say ready, set, go. So he's going to be able to amplify his own nonsense, which is always fun.
I'm just a little bit concerned about the 2 Thorns that eUnited have, because if they telegraph that frenzy pop at the right time, one of those carries could one-shot themselves, or even Bacchus could kill himself there as well.
I don't know if I like the Thorns as much on Mask as I do on Scream. Scream's going for a hybrid build, an early high the Nemean Lion here to make sure that BaRRaCCuDDa is dissuaded from hitting him with those auto attacks. I'm not sure that Mask is going to be tanky enough to really handle that, though. I mean, he went for a Gladiator Shield, he went for an Ankylo, but now working what's probably going to be a Titan's Bane. Now Mask could sell the Bluestone, could sell the Bumbas, and pick up 2 tanky items there, but for a squishy character, I don't think that Thorns does enough to make me not want to hit them because I know I can kill them so quickly.
Benji being chased up to the right-hand side. JeffHindla trying to rotate over will be stopped by Venenu. Benji gets flipped and then won't get kicked. He's going to dash forward, but 3 versus 1. Benji's been fantastic so far and finds the knockup. Here comes PBM post-frenzy from Luminosity. Up in the sky goes Mask looking for a secondary knockup, but Benji safe and sound. Mask's target instead going to be the close-up of PolarBearMike, tanky as always, and he'll walk away clean.
Man, that Stone of Gaia passive ends up helping out Benji quite a bit there. He regen a ton of HP right after that knockup from Luminosity in a well-timed ultimate as well, because if he gets stunned out by JeffHindla's belch there, he's in a ton of trouble.
And that was my concern with the Stone of Gaia. Luminosity had 3 ways to knock, Bacchus obviously, actually 4. Actually 5. I didn't even think about that. So Baskin knocks up, Jing knocks up, Bacchus obviously knocks up, Mask's ultimate does, and then you've still got Hercules.
LG looking for eUnited special here. Brings the Gold Fury down to about 10%. Realize they need to stick to it.
Ooh.
But here comes Scream all the way on the back line. 1 shot on a PandaCat. The 3rd shot's going to be good enough. Mask falls down. Gold Fury completely leashed. Baskin going to be put on a leash by PandaCat as he makes the mid laner his pet.
BaRRa now surrounded, has to airstrike back towards his team, but Benji's waiting there too. He's just going to go into zone duty now so the rest of the team can win the fight even more so by getting the Gold Fury.
And there's a full-on retreat from Luminosity. They realize that they've just lost the battle. 2 for none. Fantastic response by eUnited. Give a big ups to Scream for starting the party.
One thing I want to say though real quick though, you mentioned it about that Thorns, and that's one thing Mask could have really done with the Aegis there.
Yep.
He died because PandaCat is just like, hey, I don't care about your Thorns right now. I'm healthy enough. I'll just snap you out.
Exactly. That's why you need some defense in order to withstand enough autos to make the Thorns worth it. If you're going to die in 5 autos, then the Hunter will take the damage from 5 autos and be okay with it. And in that scenario, that's why I love this Robin selection from eUnited. Venenu transforms into it. He gets to be a frontliner all of a sudden for eUnited when you're not used to having that many tanks running at you. I mean, we saw how effective that was for Elevate to have multiple frontliners coming at you, and that's what Venenu transforms into, but still had the Aegis available to immune the damage from Baskin's ultimate. He absorbs a bunch of cooldowns, backs out, and then has the long-range damage to assist.
I do love this bit though here, because as soon as the Gold Fury goes down, what did LG do last time they lost the Gold Fury? They went straight to the Portal Demon. eUnited make a small change. They're ready for it this time, so it's not going to be as easy. Instead, look for it themselves.
Yeah, LG at this point had already gotten the Portal Demon, right? eUnited said, all right, we figured out your whole game plan. You did this the last time. Our turn, Portal Demon brought down about 10%. Rats in the sky, looking for the turnaround, and the leash on the objective. Not there just yet. Still being contested, and the Portal Demon goes the way of eUnited as they started it. But the team fight, a different story. BaRRaCCuDDa going to take down Venenu. Baskin likely to fall here to the hand of Scream. Gets 1. Benji finds the root. Benji gets the 2nd. And everybody on Luminosity falling to the wayside so far. JeffHindla by himself, surrounded, pounded, and he's going to get grounded. Benji with the last hit.
BaRRaCCuDDa.
Aquarius answers first.
Hello, BaRRaCCuDDa. Welcome back to the engagement. Boulder absorbed by the Aegis. Now BaRRa's under pressure because Benji is a man mountain in this engagement. You give him a Raven, you give him a Chulainn, they can't do anything.
Just, oh my goodness. Benji here, surrounded by players, still going to look for the tower. Aquarius so much more healthy than Benji over here, but PolarBearMike still going to help out. Aquarius brought down to half HP, and the tier 1 tower goes to the wayside.
If you've been wondering why we talk so highly of Benji and what he's able to do on land, just go ahead and watch that team fight back, because nothing Luminosity has can make an answer for what Benji's done so far in these team fights. First player to level 20, 5-1-4. He's got 5,000 more damage than anyone else in the game, and it just feels unkillable right now from Luminosity.
All of these plays, I mean, the first blood started by Benji and Scream on the right side of the map. The continuation when we saw the Gold Fury, Benji zoning out the entire damn team, and then we see a couple of these counter engagements with the knockups. And Ryan, you know, I asked you before the game. I said, "Yo, who's going to carry?" And you were just like, "Benji." No doubt in your mind. Why were you so confident in this guy?
This dude has just been a beast on land his whole career. And you know, his own teammates have said they wish that they could get him to focus as much online as they can on land. But, you know, when he comes to play, he's an absolute monster.
And, you know, I'm glad you brought up that focus. Hold this thought so far. Is eUnited going to respond to Luminosity in their own jungle? Mask shows up, and, well, JeffHindla
Just
put
evaporate
down quickly.
In a matter of seconds, too. I don't think he had a chance to do anything there apart from just disappear.
Had his ultimate available, never even got a chance to get it off. And that Spirit's Robe that Jeff just finished by being sent back to base forcibly will end up helping him out in this match.
Well, it's also the trade-off of that Frenzy versus a Shell. The Shell could have absorbed a bit more damage for him.
They're going to do this.
But this is a heavy commit from eUnited here. Mask, keep an eye on him. He's the real one to try and slow this idea down.
I wasn't sure if it was going to be a heavy commit. You can see the turnaround here. PolarBearMike, however, going to turn around, coerce his teammate, and look right back to the zone duty. Fire Giant goes down. Mask up way too late. Completely too late. And the team fight isn't even there as Screammmmm and PandaCat back off.
They just didn't realize how much damage output eUnited could do so quickly with only a few people on the objective. For 24 minutes in, that did go down very quickly.
And that's the power of Fafnir. That's why I said that JeffHindla's got the Frenzy in order to try and compete with that. You've got a Ram who does great with extra attack speed because everything he does is about auto attacks. You've got even Screammmmm who is in there doing some good auto attack damage. Everyone could do good auto attack damage when you get hit with a coerce. And PolarBearMike's ultimate is well timed there. Not only does it set up for that objective burn, but it creates a zone that Luminosity doesn't want to go through.
Tell you right from the start of the game, I was talking about Benji being an issue for them with that Stone of Gaia. Well, he's continued to look at his player damage. I mean, yes, some of that is from solo lane, but then compare what Hercules has done. There's an additional 7K there.
Nah, Benji has earned, you know, all of the numbers that are sitting in his stat column this game. There wasn't too much fake damage in that solo lane. All the times that we saw them bang around, it wound up in a kill or a full-out retreat.
But you can't even peel him. That's the problem, this Chulainn. How do you peel him away from your carries?
You can't, and because he doesn't need to be hitting your carry to be doing damage because of that extra anger pulsing out around him in that rage form.
I love how eUnited are playing this composition. Usually what we see is we see the four-man group up and then the assassin slide into the jungle looking for the flank. Well, Screammmmm is playing on the Ravana, so he's part of the four-man group up. And guess who's making the slide? It's Venenu on the mage assassin that's known as Morrigan.
I do like the idea there from Luminosity to defend the tier 2 towers as well. It's not something we see too much of, but I do think they've got a decent enough comp to defend if we see eUnited dive all the way in.
They just make the posture, though. It's not the full-on commit. We don't see the blink engage. No. It's just, hey, we're standing here. Go do something else real quick and think about this for a second.
And look at the respect that you saw eUnited give to Luminosity. They're like, okay, fine, we'll take the goal for you, then we'll come again, and this time split it up.
See, Venenu slides out to the right, chases out Mask. Screammmmm comes along, and now you're able to get this two-pronged assault where both towers are being pushed on. But left side, we see the Hercules kind of shoving eUnited in this jungle.
Jeff's already pushed out for a second as Mask comes into the back line looking to engage, but blink over the wall from Screammmmm. In comes Venenu as well. Takes out Mask. Panda in the sky looking to make something more happen.
He's already got both his relics down, but he's looking for Aquarius over the wall, but Screammm's going to take care of it for him.
And there's JeffHindla stuck right in the crosshairs one more time. Screammmmm with the double kill. And the tier 2 tower in the mid lane will fall down. Everybody healthy, everybody fire gianted, and the mid lane Phoenix also going to go down as well.
I'm pretty sure when you look back at what the desk said, they favored eUnited with the picks and bans. It's coming to fruition more than anything else. They had a nicely executed composition that played to its strengths throughout. The strengths really have been the Chulainn and the Ravana with a little bit of a spicy Morrigan if required.
For me, it's not about the composition. I still love Lumi's composition. I think Aquarius, Mask, Baskin, Jeff, and BaRRA got 5 of their top 3 gods, right? If you ask these guys, what do you want to play? This draft probably shows up. I think at the end of the day, Benji is just this variable that goes off, and it doesn't matter what happened earlier. Benji's just that damn good sometimes.
I mean, sure, but this kind of screams last year's LG again, where they're just slightly off the pace of things once more, you know? Like, what was the big item we saw more of this weekend? Stone of Gaia. Everyone started to notice it. Deathwalker brings it in. Everyone starts to adapt to it. LG, though, they draft a composition all around knockups when Stone of Gaia is seen as a big item.
See, here's the thing. I don't think they drafted knockups straight up. I think they just drafted what they were comfortable with and then got in the game and went, oh, crap, all we do is knockup.
Look, knockups are still insane. I mean, just because Stone of Gaia is very strong
It's the best CC in the game, agreed.
I still want as many knockups as I can on my team. I think it's just that Luminosity didn't get a chance to answer what Benji was doing.
Yeah.
The team fights of Luminosity won. Who's the big difference maker? It's Baskin most of the time in the mid lane, but he fell behind because Venenu was able to get a lot of that neutral farm, having the pressure that Scream was able to provide. And then Benji rotates in, and Baskin hasn't been an impact since because he doesn't have the damage to really kill Benji with the build that he's gone for. Just a little bit lacking on the penetration. I understand that with the Dynasty Plate and the pen boots, you don't really want to build into another pen item right away. Instead, he goes for the hastened ring, but you needed some sort of extra shred onto Benji if you want to contest him. But I'm not sure that even with an Obsidian Shard, even with a Demonic Grip, whatever sort of pen option Baskin wants to go for in that slot, it would have been enough because Benji was just so far ahead by that point.
And now that failed engagement in the mid lane means they lose a tier 2 and a Phoenix, this will force Luminosity to now play Phoenix defense. This is the best opportunity back into this is wait for the siege at the Phoenix, have a good little team fight there where you push them off. We've seen it a lot of time this weekend with the extra health for the Phoenixes. It has come into play, and that's why they're going to surrender this Fire Giant.
Venenu and eUnited looking to pick up this one. And like you said, LG not going to look for it at all. eUnited well above the 10,000 gold mark. Here, just shy of a half hour, 16-11. eUnited lead in all relevant categories. And with that Fire Giant, Ryan, they're looking extra scary.
For what it's worth, I also don't, I haven't not really been a fan of the Bacchus selection here for Luminosity. I mean, Aurora picked it in there against for Trifecta, and it didn't look good there either. I just don't think that he particularly fits the meta very well. His lane clear isn't very good. He doesn't bring a lot of safety to your carries. And there's enough, the gods that are being played in the jungle right now excel at getting into the backline. So you don't really need that extra backline penetrator in your draft, in my mind. You've already got plenty with Aquarius and Mask playing two gods that can make life difficult for the Morrigan and for Ram. I would have rather seen Jeff on something like a Geb that can try and save Baskin from Benji, that can try and set up and blow Benji up for other people.
But I do see the idea behind it because of the fact of this is what LG are looking at. There's triple tank and two backliners. One of the issues a lot of teams have had is getting to the backliners. One of the best guardians for getting to the backline is the fat man that can flop into him and cause him a lot of issues. So it does get the idea.
But that's the trap against triple guardian, two backline compositions. You need to just kill the front line and let the backline fall after that. It's too hard to get into the backline initially.
Well, Benji looking for the front line. Here's a little flip on PolarBearMike. Aquarius tries to change things. Scream with the blink forward. Ultimate out of the Hercules. Phoenix already down. BaRRaCCuDDa gets jumped on. Thorns activated. Doesn't bait him in, however. Up in the sky goes Mask looking for the initiation. Two birds down already. Mid lane has respawned. PolarBearMike leading the charge. Perhaps a little bit too deep, but his team going to finish off mid lane. BaRRaCCuDDa finishes off PolarBearMike. It's a 1-for-1 so far.
Barra will get out, but Panda pulled back in for a second. Has to roll away back to safety, but Benji's still on the backside, whacking away.
So aggressive.
The Titan is not doing any damage to these frontliners.
Not at all. Half HP on the Titan already. eUnited just forcing this push. Right now, the Titan gonna fall down despite LG's best efforts. And game number 1 goes to the red, white, and blue.
Look, Benji just did it all for eUnited in that game, and Luminosity has to find an answer to try and figure out how they shut him down, whether it's more rotations from Mask in the early game to help out Aquarius, whether it's giving Aquarius a matchup where he doesn't have to deal with the best warrior right now in Chulainn. Whatever it is, Luminosity has got to find an answer for Benji, because right now, he's just making too much of a difference.
Notice as well, Jeff immediately popped that frenzy, and immediately both Thorns came out, and Barra's like, I can't do anything, guys. I'm running for my life because I can't even swing at them. I'll kill myself.
Yeah, really tough stuff coming out from eUnited. Honestly, though, just looks strong. I mean, LG had a moment here or there, like you said, off the back of Baskin. But really, I mean, I just saw eUnited prove why they were #1 in North America in the regular season. And I think after this weekend, a lot of people said, you know what? eUnited looked good, but it's all LG. Things kind of turn around.
I will say, though, that LG are one of these teams that have gone 5 games consistently. And so what that does is, the best thing about that is they know how to adapt and change things up to at least take it to a game 5. So it's not necessarily a 3-0 just yet.
Very true. Still much more Smite to be played. eUnited up 1-0.
And welcome back to the desk here with Finch, Taco, and Toli after an exciting game 1 here between eUnited and LG, with eUnited coming out on top. Tolly, what's your big factor here? What was the big difference between these two teams here in this game?
I think it was just the 2v2 between the solo and the jungle here. Benji and Screammmmm, between this Ravana, the Chulainn synergy that they have with each other, it was too much to handle. LG didn't ban away the Chulainn and the Osiris on purpose because they wanted to give Aquarius to Hercules. Benji played that phenomenally against Trifecta. They were more scared of the Hercules than the Chulainn.
And the Chulainn pick as well, combined alongside of that Ravana, just made it practically impossible for BaRRaCCuDDa and Baskin to have the sort of impact that Luminosity was looking for in their damage dealers. Those double thorns especially just pretty much stopped BaRRa at every single opportunity whenever he was trying to actually attack eUnited.
Yeah, there would be a couple engagements where we would see BaRRaCCuDDa rotate in on the back of them, and you thought, oh, there's a chance maybe he can clean up, and then the thorns come out for Benji, and there just really wasn't any chance for it. And let's talk about Benji here for a minute, Tolly, because it just felt like he got too far ahead too fast.
And that's something that Chulainn really thrives off of. Whenever you transform this early on, immediately after the driving strike, Aquarius got caught with his pants down. He thought he was safe enough to clear the wave while Benji was going to get those Fire Giant Elementals, but unfortunately didn't calculate that rotation back to his lane. And after that early death, Aquarius didn't have the same impact.
And the Ravana ultimate as well to follow that up, especially because it had just happened for Screammmmm. He just hit level 5 and then immediately rotated over to that solo lane. I believe that there was probably some communications as well between the two. Benji signaling to Screammmmm that the driving strike from Aquarius was down, looking to try and clear out the wave, which made it all too easy for the Ravana ultimate to just help cover that gap when he first rotated into the lane and just shut him down.
And both of those things get exacerbated when you remember that Venenu is on the Morrigan. So it's like, I was talking in the crowd there with Aurora, and he's like, maybe they just try and focus out this Ravana. Well, then there's a second one on Venenu with the Morrigan. So it's like 2 Ravana ults in a team fight. It's just too hard to deal with, Taco.
Venenu didn't even bother trying to transform into the Ratatoskr. I don't believe I even saw him utilize the Rat ultimate once with the Morrigan transformation. Every single time he transformed, he was just looking for that Ravana initiation, and it worked out beautifully with the rest of eUnited's draft, and I really thought that it was an excellent decision because, like Agro mentioned on the cast, with that ultimate, not only are you able to deal a lot of damage because you're reducing your target's protections, but so is the rest of your team. And when you have the follow-up with the Fafnir and the Rama especially, PandaCat was just doing work on that back line.
eUnited came in with a clear-cut strategy. They got what they wanted. They didn't care what Benji necessarily got because his god pool is very diverse. And that's not saying Venenu's god pool is not diverse, because during the Spring Gauntlet with Oxygen Supremacy, he was playing a lot of Hunters as well. So even if he doesn't get Morrigan, I'm not counting out the possibility of seeing something spicy out of him.
And then I want to talk to you all a little bit here because I do think the pick ban phase had a lot to do with this game. The last 2 picks of both teams are the ADC and support, and they end up with Bacchus on LG. Do you feel like they got enough out of this Bacchus pick, Tolly?
No, not compared to how aggressive eUnited was. Bacchus paired up with Hercules. Somebody needs to initiate, somebody needs to peel. More than likely, it's going to be the Hercules, but then Bacchus is not doing his Intoxicate across the board, and that's something that you're really relying on for your support to go into the backline. Without the peels from either of those 2 characters, Luminosity got picked very easily by such an aggressive comp between this Ravana and Chulainn.
It was about after the 14.5-minute mark where we really saw things go a little bit out of control for Luminosity. It seemed fairly promising because when eUnited initially secured that Gold Fury, Luminosity actually had a very strong response, getting a 4-for-2 team fight cleanup afterwards. But from that moment forward, it was just pretty much eUnited running the map control. I mean, Luminosity wasn't even able to secure any of the Gold Furies, and one fight in particular that really sticks out to me is when PandaCat snipes out Baskin at the start.
Yeah, he did definitely find that early game snipe around the 20-minute mark around the Gold Fury, which allowed United to get that very important second Gold Fury. I think it was actually Mask that he sniped that was able to dash away there with that 3rd hit, and then Baskin fell shortly after on the flip side there. So it was a nice little double kill there for the PandaCat, but more importantly, it was the pick onto JeffHindla not even 4 minutes later that allowed eUnited to get the Fire Giant and almost basically close out the game from there.
And I want to talk to you a little bit about that, too, with the Fire Giant, because you mentioned that Gold Fury well, where they kind of lose a couple people at the end of it, and Benji's just so big, they don't entirely lose the fight. But afterwards, their disengages were so clean, Totally. Talk to me a little bit about that shot calling from eUnited, because after that Fire Giant, they don't fight at all. They all just leave.
Yeah, that's the whole point, right? You're basically depending on Luminosity to to respond some way. They got the Fire Giant for free. They zoned out so well. Benji was all over the place. PandaCat actually leashed the Fire Giant at first, thinking like there was about to be a team fight, but then Luminosity, without JeffHindla, couldn't really retaliate, and that's why after getting the Fire Giant, they didn't want to take an exchange, knowing that JeffHindla was about to be back into it.
I think another problem too for Luminosity is that there was that brief moment of hesitation, and Mask actually decided to drop the speed buff rather than opting to ult right away. And with that through the Cosmos, he might have been able to cover the space to at least take PandaCat off for a moment and maybe force eUnited to consider the team fight over securing the objective. But then Luminosity just wasn't sure, is this even possible to steal? And I believe in that moment is really when they realized they just had to fall back.
This team fight was looking good at first for Luminosity, considering that BaRRaCCuDDa was able to Jing ult to pick off Venenu, but the rest of the team fight went for eUnited. It was a 4-for-3 simply because Benji and Screammmmm were able to tower dive for so long.
Yeah, and I think that's the big difference between these two. I was about to ask you about that. The difference between BaRRaCCuDDa and PandaCat in this game, it just seemed like they were able to effectively limit what BaRRaCCuDDa could do here this game.
Yeah, with a Jing you're looking to just farm it up, play safe in the backline, rely on the rest of your teammates to kind of make the impact in the early game, and then for you to transition and carry later on. But that was never given the opportunity for BaRRa.
BaRRa did an excellent job farming, and he was even playing incredibly aggressive against PandaCat in lane. As soon as he finished building the Ninja Tabi, he started immediately dashing forward onto PandaCat, looking to try and outbox him, maybe find that solo kill. But ultimately, when you're playing Jing and you're against a double warrior composition, such as what eUnited was running, it becomes almost impossible to maneuver around and into the backline, because not only did they have Scream to help mitigate some of that damage that BaRRa was trying to output, but they also had a double Thorns combination, and that was particularly nasty when you have built-in crit because of your second ability on Jing. It just hurts you more than the enemy team trying to actually get that damage off.
And that's what it felt like to me there, totally. Like, it felt like eUnited maybe did a little bit better job countering. You know, they did a good job shutting down Aquarius on the Herc. We saw some Pestilence, some anti-heal from them. And then, like you said, the Thorns limiting some of what BaRRaCCuDDa could do on that Jing pick. What is not BaRRaCCuDDa in particular, but LG got to do to sort of match sort of that counter building we were seeing from eUnited?
I just think that they need to go for a different pick, honestly. The Jing is a little bit too BaRRaCCuDDa and not what the North American meta wants to do, honestly. There's been so many exchanges and rotations, and as a ROM player, you can make these half rotations, use your global ultimate to make an impact in these mid-lane team fights, and that's something that these North American teams have been doing so consistently, is avoiding hunters and fighting in mid, fighting in solo. So if you have that semi-global pressure, you're going to have that slight edge.
Well, we actually spoke about the Fafnir Rama and wanting to see it from Luminosity, but it seemed as though eUnited just had that page already registered, and when they secured those two picks alongside of the rest of their draft, that's what made me feel so confident in eUnited actually securing game number 1, because that is a particularly nasty combination. The Fafnir Coerce on top of the fact that you already have 2 warriors, it essentially is almost like an elevate draft, but to a different degree because of the Morrigan. You have the hard mage as opposed to a double hunter, but there is just so much room and time for PandaCat to free cast, and even though he did take an early spill at that initial 14.5-minute team fight with the Gold Fury, it didn't matter in the long run because his team was just able to provide him all of that frontline potential that made PandaCat come online.
That was a good point.